The hand that gripped Mateo's shoulder didn't claw or strike. It anchored him. Mateo's knife was millimeters from the intruder's radial artery before his brain processed the face in the dim light. It wasn't a third command shock trooper, nor was it one of Cobra's vengeful drug soldiers. It was Bruno. Big Bruno. A man who used to run logistics for the association before the war turned everyone into combatants. He was wearing the distinctive black armband of the invaders, but his eyes were filled with the terrified recognition of an old neighbor. "Quiet, gringo," Bruno hissed, using Mateo's old Favela nickname. He pushed Mateo back into the shadows of the shack, kicking the door shut just as a squad of 3 tactical soldiers jogged past the alley entrance, their laser sights cutting green lines through the dust. Mateo didn't lower the knife. "You're with them, Bruno? You flipped in 3 hours?" Bruno looked at the weapon, then up at Mateo's grease-stained face. 3 hours? Mateo, Cobra has been dead for 3 months. He just didn't know it. Look at this." He gestured to his vest. It wasn't the ragged gear of the drug gangs. It was clean, organized plate carrier. "They aren't just taking over the drug spots. They are paving the roads. They brought doctors to the samba school. They are buying us, Mateo, and the price is cheap because we were starving." Mateo lowered the knife, but didn't sheathe it. The cynicism of the favela was heavier than gravity. The third command wasn't liberating Rocinha. They were gentrifying the crime, making it corporate, efficient. "I need to get to the forest line," Mateo said, his voice a gravelly rasp, "above the Gavea Rack." "Suicide," Bruno whispered. "The Bope, Special Police Operations Battalion, has a sniper nest on the ridge. They are waiting for the rats to flush out of the burning ship. If the third command doesn't kill you, the state will." "I'm not asking for permission," Mateo said, adjusting the straps of his mechanic's jumpsuit. "I'm asking if you're going to scream when I walk out that door." Bruno hesitated. This was the friction point of the war, where old loyalties ground against new survival instincts. Slowly, Bruno stepped aside. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a fresh radio, tossing it to Mateo. "Channel 4 is their logistics frequency. It's unencrypted. If you hear them call Code Black, it means the Caveron Aéreo, police helicopter, is overhead. If that happens, freeze. Thermal cameras can't see a ghost if he doesn't move." Mateo nodded. A silent exchange of debts paid and futures severed. He slipped back into the labyrinth of the Becco Durato. The atmosphere outside had shifted. The chaotic gunfire of the invasion had settled into a rhythmic, oppressive occupation. As Mateo moved through the narrow veins of the slum, keeping to the drainage ditches and the shadows of overhanging eaves, he saw the transformation Silas had predicted. Bodies were being moved, not looted. Soldiers in black were directing terrified residents away from burning structures with hand signals, not rifle butts. It was terrifyingly professional. It made Mateo feel obsolete. He was a warrior of the old world, a world of passion and messy violence. This was sterile warfare. He reached the edge of the Estrada de Gavia, the main road that snaked up the mountain. To cross it was to expose himself to the spotlight of the hovering helicopter. The flying skull was distant, its rotor blades thumping against the chest of the night, but its searchlight swept the tin roofs like the eye of God searching for sinners. Mateo crouched behind the burnt chassis of a combi van. The smell of burning rubber and ozone was suffocating. He tuned the radio Bruno gave him. "Sector 4 clear. Civilians contained. Moving to extract high-value targets." High-value targets. That meant Cobra's lieutenants, the men Mateo had served alongside, drank with, and ultimately abandoned. He felt a pang of guilt, sharp and useless. He had taught Leo to clean a gun, but he hadn't taught him how to survive the end of his world. Mateo timed the helicopter's sweep. thump, thump. The light passed over the combi, illuminating the wet asphalt. Darkness followed. Mateo moved. He didn't run. Running attracted the eye. He moved with a fast, rolling gait, staying low. He crossed the asphalt, his boots silent on the wet road, and vaulted the concrete barrier on the other side. He landed in the dense vegetation of the Tijuca forest edge. The transition was instant, from the smell of cordite and sewage to the smell of wet earth and rotting leaves. He was out of the urban maze, but he wasn't safe. The forest was the kill zone. He climbed for 20 minutes, his breath burning in his lungs, the mechanic's jumpsuit clinging to him with sweat. He stopped near an old water catchment tank to rest. Snap! A twig broke. Not from an animal. It was the heavy, deliberate step of a boot. Mateo pressed himself against the mossy concrete of the water tank. He wasn't being hunted by the Third Command. They were busy securing the streets. He wasn't being hunted by the police. They were watching the roads. A voice drifted from the darkness of the trees, familiar and laced with weeping hysteria. "Teacher." It was Leo, the boy he had spared in the mechanic's shop. Mateo turned slowly. Leo stood 10 meters away, illuminated by the stray moonlight filtering through the canopy. But Leo wasn't alone. Behind him stood 2 of Cobra's remaining elites, men known as the Butchers. They looked ragged, bloodied, and insane with the grief of defeat. "You left us," one of the Butchers gnarled, stepping out from behind the boy. His face was a mask of dried blood. "You walked out. You gave up the position. You're the reason Cobra fell." "Cobra fell because he was a junkie king on a crumbling throne," Mateo said calmly. He didn't raise his weapon. "Leo, put the gun down." They said you sold us out to the Third Command," Leo sobbed. "They said you made a deal." "The only deal I made was to let you live," Mateo said. "Don't make me regret it." The Butcher raised his assault rifle. "Kill him, Leo. Prove you're not a traitor like him. Kill the teacher, and you become the man." The forest held its breath. The distant war was a hum in the valley below. Here, in the dark green silence, a smaller, sharper tragedy was about to pull the trigger. Mateo watched Leo's finger tighten on the trigger. He saw the boy's soul crumbling under the weight of a choice he was too young to make. Mateo didn't reach for his weapon. He looked at Leo. "Do it or walk away, but don't hesitate."